Joyce will return to the ring on June 15th at the York Hall in Bethnal Green, London's and probably Britain's most famous small hall venue for boxing. It's not, it hasn't been announced yet who he's going to fight, but it will be the first defense of his Commonwealth heavyweight title that he won against Leroy Thomas. It will be a Haymaker Ring Star show as opposed to the Leroy Thomas fight, which was on a Matchroom show, and it will be on Dave, UK TV. So yeah, interesting to see what kind of opponent they can get. The fact that it's at York Hall, you would imagine the opponent probably won't be the greatest, but we'll see. They're going to try and build Joyce, and I'm interested in how his career develops. I was a skeptic when Joyce first turned professional, but after his first couple wins, I started looking at more of his amateur fights. I already knew about Joyce prior. I'd seen him in the Olympics and I knew about his reputation in the amateurs. But when I actually went back to look at his amateur career and to watch some of his fights against some of the top amateurs in the world, and I looked at his fights in the World Series of Boxing, I realized that, you know what? He's doing something right, clearly, because the results don't lie. So as much as he looked clunky and slow and all this kind of stuff to me, the results are indicative of him being better than I initially thought he was. Clearly. When he first turned pro, I was thinking this guy's going to be like a Johan Duopa or a Marius Wack or somebody like that. Now I think he's actually going to be a lot better than those guys. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to take over the heavyweight division. I'm not even going to sit here and tell you that he'll win a world title anytime soon. But I do think he's going to be better than the likes of a Duopa or a Marius Wack. I think he's more athletic than both of those guys. I think he's more versatile than both of those guys. And yeah, I just think he's a better boxer than both of those guys. There was an interview that Peter Fury did on IFL TV a few weeks back where he talked about Joyce. And Joyce has sparred Tyson Fury, by the way. And Peter Fury spoke very highly of Joyce. He basically said, Joyce might look clumsy and clunky and whatever, but it works. And he was talking about the Leroy Thomas fight. And he said, look, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he said, look, people are saying he got hit too much in the Leroy Thomas fight and he wouldn't be able to fight like that against such and such a heavyweight because he'd get knocked out. And Peter Fury said, well, he's not going to fight like that against such and such a heavyweight. He fought that way against Leroy Thomas because he knew what he had in front of him. A guy who was powerless. A guy who did not have the power to keep him off. So why waste time? He just bulldozed him. When he fights someone who's better technically, who has more power, then he'll be more careful and he'll box. This is what Peter Fury was saying. And again, this is a guy who's had Joyce in his gym. This is a guy, Peter Fury knows boxing. I am critical and a little skeptical of Hughie Fury, his son, but Peter Fury to me is one of the brightest boxing minds in the game. Whenever this guy talks boxing, I'm always nodding my head because this guy clearly knows his stuff. He's clearly a student of the game. He's clearly somebody who studies boxing, who studies many different fighters and has done for many years. A real scholar of the game, Peter Fury. So what he said about Joyce, I definitely take it on board. That it looks ugly, but it's effective. And when he has to switch it up and box more carefully against different styles, he will. He's not going to box everybody the same way that he fought Leroy Thomas. I mean, when he fought a couple fights ago, or the fight before Leroy Thomas against that big tall guy, he didn't box the same way as he did against Thomas. He was actually on the outside slinging shots from long range. I know the opponent was awful, but still it was a different style that he showed. He showed him a bit more respect actually because of the size of the guy. So yeah, I take it on board. I'm looking forward to seeing what opponent they've got for Joyce. It'll be his 5th fight. He's currently 4-0 with 4 KOs. The fastest person to ever, well, he's won the Commonwealth title faster than any other British heavyweight or maybe any other heavyweight in the Commonwealth in history. So good achievement. Let's see who his opponent is going to be. If any of you have got any ideas about who his opponent is going to be, or any suggestions about who you'd like to see him in there with at this stage, then yeah, hit me up in the comment section and let me know. Dave Allen, I think, would be a great opponent for Joe Joyce if they can get Dave Allen. Dave Allen obviously had those 2 fights with Leroy Thomas, didn't get the results he wanted. Let's see if he can have a crack at Joe Joyce. Dave Allen doesn't want to be an opponent, and that's what he was turning into. He's trying to mold a career for himself and become a contender in his own right. And Eddie Hearn seems to want this for Dave Allen as well. That he wants him to have a career in his, be a contender in his own right. And that means that Dave Allen might not be so gung-ho about taking on these young, up-and-coming, former amateur stars. Because there was the possibility of him fighting Daniel Dubois, but that didn't seem to materialize. I'm not sure if he was advised against it. I know Dave Allen is brave as anything and he'll take on anyone, right? But again, I think people like Eddie Hearn are telling him, look, you don't want to be an opponent, do you? Because the people were accusing Eddie Hearn of making Dave Allen an opponent, which maybe he was. But from what I've seen of Eddie Hearn in his past few interviews, he's talking about Dave Allen maybe having some development fights rather than just throwing him in the deep end. But then it also, you have to bear in mind that guys like Dubois and Joe Joyce are not Eddie Hearn fighters. So maybe if there were Eddie Hearn prospects, he'd still be using Dave Allen as an opponent. But because they're not Eddie Hearn prospects, Joe Joyce and Dubois, he's telling Dave Allen, no, don't fight those guys. Unless they pay you crazy money, then, don't fight them. Anyway, let me know how you feel in the comment section below, people. It's happening. I'm out.